Hey guys, what is up? It's me, Pagey here, once again with another video for you guys. In this video, we're going to be going through 10 things that they'll have to change with Captain America Civil War from the comics to the big screen. So if you do go on to enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like, leave any comments on what you think they'll change from the comics to the big screen, or just agree with anything I said. And if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe. So the first thing we have is the whole reality TV superheroes thing that went on in the comics. So the thing that really kicked off the whole Civil War debacle in the comics was this group called the New Warriors, which had this whole reality TV thing going on. Now the issue is that they weren't really up to the task that they were given, and it resulted in a lot of deaths, with the villain Nitro apparently accidentally killing 600 civilians, which around 600 civilians, which included roughly 60 children. And this resulted in like the big Superhero Registration Act. Now the reason that they can't do this in the movie is the fact that they haven't set up this New Warriors thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so they can set up like there's this big civilian death rate that happens with a particular villain or a particular event, which would lead to the Registration Act, but they can't use the New Warriors or this reality TV situation to set that up. Next up is the importance of the secret identity to these superheroes. Now the reason it was important in the comics was because there was a lot more characters set out in the universe which had their identities protected. They weren't out in the open. But the issue in the film would be that you've got Tony Stark, who's already revealed his identity to the world. You have Thor, who's from a complete other planet and universe, and then and also you have Captain America, whose identity is public anyway. So you really got the lower end. You got Hulk, and it doesn't really matter because no one would really see Hulk go back to, you know what I mean. And so I don't think it really need to be out there. They might touch upon it, the whole secret identities, with like maybe Steve Rogers doesn't like the fact that he was revealed as Captain America, that everyone knows he's Captain America and stuff like that. And then you get Hawkman and stuff like that going, or not Hawkman, sorry, but Hawkeye on his side. Next up we have is the actual role, I said before, of Spider-Man and what role he'll play in the movie, whether he's in the movie at all. Now, I have said that I don't know if he's going to be in the movie 100%, but I think he might be in there at some point. Like, he'll pop up probably towards the last maybe like 25% of the movie. But he's a massive role in the comics because he initially unmasked himself, and then he realizes throughout time that he doesn't like this whole being unmasked thing and the stuff that Tony Stark's doing, as well as some other people are doing. So he swaps sides. But the thing that won't work in the comics is the fact that we haven't set up this Spider-Man in this universe. He's not going to be right at the beginning of the movie. He's not going to be able to go along that story arc that he does in in Civil War. So in Captain America Civil War, they're going to have to do something different, whether he pops up in some different way or maybe someone finds out his identity. It's really interesting to see how they're going to do it in regards to Spider-Man, because they've got his rights really late, so I'm assuming they would have written some part of the script already before they knew that he was going to be there. So whether they replace his role with another character, we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be pretty interesting to see how they work Spider-Man throughout this movie and how they deal with stuff that came from the comics over to the movie. Next up is the lack of superheroes. Now, there's still a decent amount of superheroes in this universe, but in regards to the comics, we got like a minimal amount. So they're not going to have as many people fighting on each side, so it's really going to be interesting to see how they deal with this. It's not going to be this massive battle that we would probably expect. Like, we do have Ant-Man. We will probably get Daredevil because they're going to be like scraping the barrel for these heroes, so I'm hoping that we get Daredevil, just due to the fact that he's in New York City with all these other people where they essentially set up this whole Avengers thing. So you think that he would be there. We got Black Panther, who's meant to be making an appearance, possibly Spider-Man, as I said before. The Hulk is apparently meant to be in it, even though he flew away to God knows where. So they've got a decent amount, but they do have like a minimal amount as to what they would prefer to have. But in the comics, we've got everyone. We've got like heaps of people fighting each other. In the movie, we're going to have like a minimal amount, but we still have a decent amount of heroes fighting. And even Tony Stark's side, depending on what they do, like who knows what the hell they're going to do. Like, he might use those drones that he has, so who knows what they're going to do. And going back to that other point, the new point we have is there's not enough villains, really. We know that the main villain is Baron Zemo, obviously in regards to Hydra, But what other villains are going to be in this movie? We really don't know too much. Like, we're meant to see Tony Stark as some sort of villain, but then we also know that Baron Zemo is going to be in the movie. So is there going to be more Hydra-esque villains popping up? Or, yeah, what are we going to see? Like, no one really knows in regards to the villains what we're going to see in this movie. Because if you remember, most of the villains that have popped up have basically died or been locked away and stuff like that. So it's really difficult to bring them back somehow. So I think that's one of the issues that they face, and they might just base it around the whole superheroes having this civil war, and the villains might just be like on the sideline, like Baron Zemo mainly. But yeah. Up next is we have certain deaths that happen in the comics that would happen, how they're going to portray them on screen. The most notable here is the death of Goliath. Now, Goliath was but he's like a size-altering hero, sort of similar to Ant-Man. Now, his death in the comics basically represented how these fights were growing much bigger, they were growing much more destructive, and they were just reaching this massive showdown, and it represented really well with someone actually dying that was a superhero. Now, even though deaths are sort of fairly common within comics, like you see people die all the time, especially sometimes superheroes, but the loss of Goliath in the comics was a massive turning point in the actual story, and it showed the resistance of Captain America and just how far these registration forces were willing to go to pass this act. Now, the issue that faces in the film is like, one thing, Goliath isn't in the universe, and it'd be weird if they introduced him and then killed him off, because there's no real connection there. And if they were going to replace him with someone like Ant-Man, but Ant-Man, it's pointless making a movie and then the next movie following up there, he dies. So I don't think they're going to go down that road. They might not just include any form of death scene at that point in the storyline. They might just wait till the end for another certain death scene. But I think Marvel might have. I don't think they've stuffed up completely, but it would have been good if they just they figured out what they're going to do here, because it just seems there's a lot of script writing going on, like mid-script, if you know what I mean, like mid-filming, or not mid-filming, but like towards the end of like setting it up. So I don't know, hopefully they get it right. I have faith in Marvel in what they're going to do. They've had the majority of their movies have been pretty damn good, so I have faith that they'll do it right. And relating to that previous point we had with Goliath dying, the way that he was killed was actually through Thor. And not actually Thor. He was killed by a clone of Thor. Now, what actually happens in the storyline is that Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four, was hired by Tony Stark to create these clones. Well, actually, I think it was just a clone particularly of Thor, and this was actually named Ragnarok, aka we got that Thor Ragnarok movie coming up. And what actually happened, he was in the battle. He just appeared in this middle of the battle that Captain America, like the force behind Captain America was winning this battle, and he just turned around and went, you know what, fuck it, YOLO. And he just killed Goliath, like brutally killed him. And then this clone went on to have like a pretty decent role, I'm not going to spoil anything, but a decent role in the rest of the Civil War. And also some later stories later on. Now, the issue with this whole Ragnarok thing appearing in the movie is that they've had in Age of Ultron this whole thing about AI going rogue and not doing what it's meant to. So I think they couldn't rinse and repeat this. So they'll probably do something else. They do have Reed Richards, but obviously it's owned by Fox, so they can't really bring him in. It's not in this universe, so they're not going to be able to do this unless it's something to do with Hank Pym. But I don't know if they'll go down that road. And I think they just might forget completely about this whole Ragnarok thing in regards to the clone. Next up is we have the Negative Zone Prison. Now, what the Negative Zone Prison is otherwise known as Prison 42, and essentially it was created by Tony Stark and Reed Richards, basically to hold superhuman prisoners. Sort of similar, I guess you could say, how the Flash has that whole containment thing in the particle accelerator, but it was basically to hold them, and if they were to escape, they'd be trapped in this like desolate, lifeless universe and lifeless world with nothing going on. The reason why it worked in the film, obviously, is because it's not set up. It's not set up in the universe, similar to how the New Warriors aren't set up in the universe. It'd be really random if they just popped up, oh, there's this thing in the middle of the universe, in a parallel universe, and basically holds prisoners. We had a lot of time to build this between Age of Ultron and now. So I don't think it would happen, and it just wouldn't make sense, but that's one thing that they're definitely going to have to change from the comics. Next up we have is both Asgard and Atlantis being involved in the final battle in this whole Civil War thing. Now, in the final battle of this Civil War, it just doesn't involve the whole main heroes and villains of Marvel. It also involves the army of Asgard coming down and fighting on the side of the Resistance, but also Atlantis comes up and is like, what's doing? And they ended up, I think they get recruited. They don't just join, they get recruited by the the registration group, and once again this just adds to a battle. Now the thing that's interesting in this is that Thor's actually going to be absent from Civil War, so it'd be really random if they just had Asgardians pop up. But it also revolves around if this clone Thor is there, but I don't think they're going to do the clone Thor, so this would wipe out Asgardians popping up. And also they haven't set up this whole Atlantis thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, and I think there's also copyright. I don't think they actually own the rights to use it. I'm not too sure, but I don't think that. It's just not going to make sense and just not going to be involved in the film. So basically, they got the comic book here and they're just going to rip out a lot of pages because they're not going to make sense in the movie. And the last thing we have is Tony Stark actually becoming the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, in the comics, Steve Rogers is actually the director of the S.H.I.E.L.D. at the beginning of it, but the fact that he doesn't want to go along with his Registration Act means he's quickly replaced by Tony Stark. Now, the issue with the comics and the movies is that Tony Stark basically proves that he doesn't really like listening to anyone else and he likes doing stuff himself, which is basically evidence from the Age of Ultron stuff when he created Ultron. So it's not going to work. It just makes no sense in the movie. Everyone will be like, oh, how do they randomly make him director of S.H.I.E.L.D.? It really doesn't make any sense. So I think Marvel want to be logical here and not put him as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it wouldn't make any sense at all. Like we know that Tony Stark has, I guess you could say, matured. From the first film, we knew him as a sort of like doesn't really care about anything. He's got some sensibility about him now, but he's still not up to the line where he could be the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Also, if he's going around causing a lot of stuff in this movie, why would it make sense that they make him director of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well? So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. Leave any comments on what do you think they'll change from the comic to the big screen. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. If you're new around here, make sure to subscribe. And I will catch you later, guys. Goodbye.